Something changed in the Australian car market. Most owners still don't know it happened. Japanese cars that Australian families have trusted for decades are being quietly repriced downward, not because the cars failed, because the market around them did. And for the first time in the history of this country's car industry, Chinese brands are replacing Japanese brands in the national sales rankings. Dealers already know what that means for your trade-in. Owners find out last. 6 Japanese brands. Here is what is moving before most owners find out. Brand 1. Nissan. Let me start with a story that already ended. In 2020, Nissan's luxury brand disappeared from Australia. Infinity. 15 years here. Full dealer network. Real cars. Gone. The owners didn't get a letter. They found out when they rang to book a service and the number no longer worked. Or when they sat across a dealer and heard a trade-in offer 30 to 40% below what they expected. The brand left. The cars stayed. The owners are still carrying the loss. That story is worth knowing, because Nissan's own numbers in 2026 are starting to look familiar. Nissan's Australian sales fell 44.7% in the first 2 months of 2026. The Qashqai, the family SUV sitting in thousands of Australian driveways, is down 78% year-on-year. Nissan has now fallen out of Australia's top 10 brands for the first time in 20 years. The spots Nissan used to hold are now filled by BYD and Chery. Dealers have seen a brand go through this sequence before. First, the sales fall. Then the network quietly contracts. Then the dealer typing your trade-in number into the screen pauses a little longer before showing it to you. Nissan also received a $10.7 million government emissions fine in February 2026. And Honda and Nissan are currently in active global merger talks, with the outcome being decided in Tokyo, not in Australia. If you own a 2021, 2022 or 2023 Nissan Qashqai or X-Trail, that number on the dealer's screen has already been shaped by everything above. The calculation is done, you just haven't sat down yet. Brand 2. Mazda. This is the one most Australians will not believe. Because Mazda is not a struggling brand. Mazda is what Australian families buy when they want to get it right. It is the school-run SUV, the sensible choice, the car sitting in suburban driveways across this country because the people who bought it did their research and decided it was safe. Which makes what happened in February 2026 so significant. Mazda received the single largest emissions fine of any car brand in Australia, $25 million. Let that land. Not a fringe brand. Not a new market entrant with no track record. The most trusted mid-tier name in Australian automotive history. The biggest government fine in the market. Now here is where it reaches the car in your driveway. The fine exists because Mazda's most popular vehicle, the CX-5, produces nearly double the emissions that Australian law will require by 2029. Future Mazda hybrids are coming, but right now, in 2026, they are not here. And every CX-5 sold today adds to a liability that only grows. But this is the part dealers are already acting on. When new car demand falls, as a Mazda 3 sales fell more than 34% in a single year, wholesale auction prices for used versions of those cars start moving. There is a lag, usually 6 to 9 months. Dealers know that lag. They price for it before you book the appointment. Some Mazda owners will scroll Redbook and see a number that still looks reasonable. Then they'll sit across the desk and hear something different. The silence in that moment is the market catching up to a calculation that was already done. Brand 3, Subaru. Subaru fought the emissions law, then got fined by it. In 2023 and 2024, Subaru lobbied the Australian government to weaken the new vehicle efficiency standard. They wanted softer targets, delayed penalties. The government rejected every part of that position. In February 2026, Subaru received a $6.9 million fine under the exact law it had tried to stop. But here is the part that matters more than the fine. The 2029 emissions target is 58 grams of CO2 per kilometre. A current Subaru Forester petrol produces around 155. Full stop. That is the gap Subaru has to close in 3 years. With an engine architecture, the Boxer, that makes electrification harder than almost any other mainstream brand in AADA, Australia, and no affordable hybrid confirmed for the Foresters and Outbacks sitting in Australian driveways right now. When a trusted family SUV brand has no clear path to where the law is heading, the market starts asking questions. Not in press releases. In the trade-in numbers that come back quieter than expected. In the red book valuation that drifts a few $1,000s when you check it 6 months later. In the moment at the desk when the number on the screen is not the number you prepared for. The market does not wait for brands to close the gap. It prices the gap while it is still open. This channel publishes a new investigation every week into exactly what is moving in the Australian car market before it reaches you. Brand exits, resale crashes, the numbers that move before owners find out. Subscribe now. This report continues. Brand 4, Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi had a simple deal with Australia for 20 years. More car, less money. That was the whole proposition. And it worked. The Outlander in the driveway, the ASX doing school runs, the Triton on the worksite. Mitsubishi was not flashy. It was reliable, affordable, and always there. Australian families bought in because the value was real. Then something happened. Mitsubishi got replaced in its own lane. BYD, GWM, and Chery showed up in Australian showrooms with comparable vehicles. Similar space, similar safety ratings, similar features, at prices that undercut Mitsubishi's entry point. They did not try to beat Mitsubishi on prestige. They just matched it on value and then went lower. The deal Mitsubishi had with Australia? Someone else offered it cheaper, and the numbers show exactly when it happened. Sales down 17.9% in 2025. The CTO resigned in September that year with no detailed explanation. 2 models, the Eclipse Cross, the Pajero Sport, gone from the Australian lineup. Mitsubishi showrooms operating with 3 vehicles for a stretch in 2026. Now think about what happens at the trade-in desk. A 2021 Mitsubishi Outlander is now being assessed in a market where newer alternatives from brands that did not exist in Australia when that car was new are selling for less on the forecourt beside it. The dealer doing that assessment is not doing the owner a favor by pointing that out, but the number on the screen will reflect it. That number is what the market actually believes about that car's future, not the sticker price from the day it was bought. The wholesale floor from last week. Brand 5, Honda. In 2021, Honda terminated 36 Australian dealers at once, no transition period. Honda moved to a fixed price agency model and removed those dealerships from the network in a single structural decision. 3 dealers took Honda to court. 1 walked out with $13.6 million in damages from the Victorian Supreme Court. A federal court separately ordered Honda to pay $6 million for misleading customers about whether those dealerships were still open and operational. Honda's response to both rulings was clear. They are comfortable with the model. They are not changing it. Meanwhile, the sales figures tell a different story. From 43,000 vehicles a year in 2018 to around 15,000 by 2024. 2/3 of Honda's Australian volume. Gone in 6 years. Now picture this. You bought a 2020 Honda CR-V, serviced it at your local Honda dealer, built up the history, kept every receipt. You did everything right. You go to trade it in, but the dealer who sold you that car may not be there anymore. The workshop that knew your service history may have changed hands or closed. The network that gave your ownership story its continuity has contracted, and the dealer sitting across from you is assessing a car from a brand that has been through multiple rounds of legal action, public criticism, and a loss of 2/3 of its market volume since the year before you bought it. Honda CR-V retention at 3 years is now between 50 and 60%. Before the agency model, it was in the mid-60s. The car is the same car. The infrastructure behind it is not. And the market price is infrastructure. Brand 6, Suzuki. Now everything changes direction. Suzuki belongs on this list. Sales down 32.5% in 2026. A new model that received a 1-star safety rating in crash testing and triggered a recall. The same to emissions pressure squeezing every petrol-only Japanese brand in Australia. By every surface number, Suzuki should be the worst story here. But there is one model the market is treating completely differently. And this is the detail most owners on every other brand on this list need to understand. Because it explains exactly why their car is being repriced, even though it doesn't feel like anything has changed. The Jimny. Industry data compiled by AutoGrab and the Australian Automotive Dealer Association ranked the Jimny number 1 across the entire Australian SUV segment for retained value. 2 to 4-year-old Jimnys are achieving some of the strongest resale results in the market. In 2025, when a compliance issue temporarily pulled the 3-door off sale, used prices held. When it came back in 2026, Suzuki raised the price by up to $2,000. Buyers accepted it without hesitation. Why? Chinese brands still don't have a real Jimny competitor. There is no BYD version, no GWM version, no Chery version, and that changes everything. Every other car on this list has been undercut. Nissan by BYD, Mazda by Chery, Mitsubishi in its own lane by GWM. The pattern is the same each time. A Chinese brand arrives with a comparable vehicle at a lower price. New car volumes fall. Wholesale auction prices for the older version follow. The owner finds out at the desk. The Jimny has no comparable vehicle at a lower price. The formula that is repricing every other Japanese car in Australia cannot find a product to apply. That one fact, scarcity, no substitute, genuine demand, is the difference between a car being repriced and a car holding its ground in the same market, at the same time, under the same conditions. Suzuki as a brand is under pressure, but the owner of a 2021 or 2022 Jimny is sitting on one of the very few Japanese cars in Australia that the wholesale market is still moving toward. Here is what you do today. Go to redbook.com.au. Find the trade-in valuation for your exact vehicle, your make, model, year, and specific variant. Write that number down. Not the private sale estimate. The trade-in figure, come back in 6 months. Pull the same number again. If the drop is bigger than normal annual depreciation for your category, the market is not aging your car. It is repricing your brand. Those are two completely different things. One is time. The other is a decision the market already made without you. The benchmark used in every report on this channel is the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. 81 to 84% of value at 3 years. Toyota faced the same emissions law as every brand on this list, the same Chinese competition, the same market. The difference is hybrid volume. Toyota arrived at 2026 with NVES credits instead of fines. It had demand instead of decline. The gap between Toyota and everything on this list is not quality. It is timing. Toyota got there first. These 6 brands did not. The market already decided which Japanese cars adapted to Australia's new car economy and which ones didn't. Dealers know it. Wholesalers know it. The auction floors already priced it in. Most owners won't find out until they're sitting across a desk hearing a number they weren't ready for, watching the dealer turn the screen around. By then, the market has already moved. Subscribe to this channel. Every week we show you exactly what is moving before it reaches you.